continuing with the book, Step Into the Next Dimension. And we're going to be on day 10 again. We started yesterday with day 10, and we are still on day 10, which is page 19 in your book. Today, the topic is a quote from my spiritual teacher, the Reverend Dr. Mary A. Tumpkin. And so that's going to be our topic for today. And what Mary would say to me, she called me Happy Feet because I love to dance. I was called the dancing metaphysician. She said, nothing comes into your life without your invitation. All right? Just affirm with me, nothing, this is actually a denial, nothing comes into my life without my invitation. Come on, do this denial work again. Nothing comes into my life without my invitation. One more time for the subconscious phase of mind. Nothing comes into my life without my invitation. All right, I know that that's going to require you to put your big girl panties on and your big boy drawers on to really take full, complete, total, absolute responsibility for what's going on in your life. Because whoever's in your life, you invited them. Whatever's going on in your life, you invited it. Nothing comes into your life without your invitation. All right? All right, so we're going to read our scripture for today. It's going to be 3 verses, and there was no way I could separate them because all the verses kind of connect. Give me a thumbs up, give me a high five, give me a heart. If you know you can't break up those pericopes, that sometimes a sentence in scripture will go 2 or 3 verses, and even though it's 2 or 3 verses, it's really just one sentence. And so our scripture for today is Romons chapter 5, verses 3 through 5. Again, that's Romans chapter 5, verses 3 through 5. And it says, not only so, but we glory in tribulation, knowing that tribulation works patience, and patience experience, and experience hope. And hope makes us not ashamed. Again, that's Romans chapter 5, verses 3 through 5. And today our subject is that nothing comes into my life without my invitation. We started this big concept yesterday about really seeing how we have formed beliefs because we're living out our beliefs. And I got a little correction to make. Somebody say correction. There's nothing wrong with an eraser. It's nothing wrong with the delete button. It's nothing wrong with a spell check, a grammar check. It's a correction. And it's a very important correction. I kind of felt funny yesterday each time I said it. But how we form these beliefs is pulley point number 1. This is not pulley point number 1. This is a review from yesterday. How we form the beliefs is that there is an event. I said experience. It's not an experience. It's just an event. Then you have thoughts about that event. You have feelings about that event. And that creates the experience. You keep having that experience over and over again, and that creates your beliefs. Let me review this again from yesterday. So an event happens in your life. You have thoughts about that event. You have feelings about that event, and that creates the experience. And you keep recreating that experience over and over again because those thoughts are still there about that event. Those feelings are still there about that event. So you recreate the experience. And as you keep recreating the experience, you form beliefs. And then you live out those beliefs over and over again. Because of correction, I'm going to go over it one more time. Because 2 people can have the same event but not be having the same experience because they have different thoughts and feelings about the event. One little word change, but it's imperative. It's important that you get it. All right, let me give it to you again. An event happens. It's just an event. You have thoughts about that event. You have feelings about that event. That creates an experience. You keep recreating that experience and you form beliefs around that experience. So it is an event, thoughts, feelings, experience, and then beliefs. All right? Give me a thumbs up, give me a high five, give me a heart if you know that you are living out your beliefs and it all started with an event and you had thoughts about that event that you didn't let go. You had feelings about that event that you didn't release. So it formed an experience for you. And therefore, you keep recreating that experience and it gets into your subconscious as a belief. And you keep living out your beliefs. Give me a thumbs up, give me a high five, give me a heart if you understand what I'm saying. And the scripture from yesterday was that Jesus said, the prince of this world cometh and he finds nothing in me. I don't have any more thoughts about that. So it can't recreate because I released my thoughts about it. I don't have any more feelings about that. So it cannot recreate itself because I don't have any more feelings about it. So I'm not going to keep recreating it because I release those thoughts and I let go of those feelings. So now I'm open to a different event and I'm open to a new experience. Give me a thumbs up, give me a high five, give me a heart. But these experiences, as the scripture says, that we glory in tribulation because tribulation works patience, and patience, experience, and experience, hope, and hope makes not ashamed. So let's talk about what's going on in your life. We all got stuff going on in our lives. Give me a thumbs up, give me a high five, give me a heart if you recognize that we all got stuff going on in our lives. And so the way that we process and deal with it is so important. Reverend Mary said, nothing comes into your life without your invitation. No one comes into your life without your invitation. So pulley point number one is that you call for it, which means not on a conscious level, but on a subconscious level, you call for that person. You call for that thing. You call for that experience because your soul desires to learn, to grow, to heal, to unfold. And so you call for different people, places, and things to come into your life so that your soul can learn, grow, heal, unfold, and become better. So pulley point number one is that you call for the experience. You call for it. You called for it. And let me tell you, because you sent for it, because you called for it, it comes. Everything that's going on in your life with your family, with your friends, with your neighbors, with your co-workers, with your classmates, with your church members, in the church, in the business, in your community, with your household, you call for experiences. And sometimes we do it consciously and sometimes we do it unconsciously. But pulley point number one is that I call for it. My soul calls for it. Because my soul has a desire to learn and grow, heal, unfold, and to be better. So the only way that I'm going to do that is through experiences. So pulley point number one, we call for the experience. We call for the person, the place, the thing to come into our lives so we can have an experience. Mary would say experience, that we call for it. And so I affirm that I have called for every experience that I've ever had in my life. I called for it. Pulley point number one is that my soul called for it. Even if logically and rationally, I would have never called for this. But my soul, which is deeper than just what's going on in the conscious phase of mine, my soul on a deeper level called for this experience so that I could learn, grow, heal, unfold, and be better. Give me a thumbs up, give me a high five, give me a heart if you understand what I'm saying. Pulley point number one is that the way that it works, that everything comes into our lives by our invitation, is pulley point number one, we call for it. Our souls call for it. All right? Pulley point number two. When you call for it, it comes. It's just like if you call somebody to come over to your house. Come on over, let's have a cup of tea. Come on over, let's have a cup of coffee. Come on over, have lunch. So you call for that person to come. Then when the person gets to your house, they knock on the door. They ring the doorbell. If you got those cameras, you can see that they come to your house and you can see who's there ringing your doorbell, knocking on your door, pressing the button. You can see who it is. And once they get there, you invite them in. So pulley point number one is I called for it. Just like I call for people to come to my house. I'm having a party. Come on over, y'all. And then once they get there, pulley point number two is that I invited in. So not only did I call for it, but I then invited inside of my life. I invited inside of my world. I invited in. And nobody gets in, even though your soul calls for it. Even though your soul calls for the person, for the place, or the thing, the only way it got in is that you opened the door and invited, come on in, have a seat, make yourself comfortable, make yourself at home. And that's what we do with these various experiences of our lives. Pulley point number one, we call for it. Pulley point number two, we invited in. Yes, we invited it. It didn't come in your life with you knocking the door down, it busting out the windows. You got too much security and safety going on for things to come into your life without your invitation. You got too much going on for it to come into your life without you letting it in. You let it in. You let that negativity in. You let those thoughts in. You let those feelings in. You called for it. And pulley point number two, you invited it in and said, come on, have a seat, make yourself comfortable. And then pulley point number three, once it gets in, we host it. Yes. Come on in. The bathroom's over here. Can I offer you some water? Can I get you some tea? Whatever you need, I'm here. And we host it. We keep feeding it. We keep clothing it. We keep making it comfortable in our lives. And we say, oh my God, why is it that this experience is not over? Because you keep hosting it. You keep feeding it. You keep making it comfortable. You keep making it, you've been so hospitable to this experience that's why it stays. And that's why you stay in that experience, because you keep hosting it. No one comes into your life without your invitation. Nothing comes into your life without your invitation. Pulley point number one, my soul calls for it. And then once it comes, pulley point number two, I invite it in. And pulley point number three, once I invite it in, I host it. And because I am still hosting it, because you are still hosting it, you are still having that experience. You ever get to the party and you can see that the lights, they start cutting the lights, either they cut the lights down or they cut the lights up. But something happens with the lights to let you know it's time to go. The music, it could have been loud. They cut the music down. They cut the music off to let you know that it's time to go. They start gathering up the food, start packing up. You start hearing people doing dishes and cleaning up and packing up, sweeping and stuff all around to let you know the party is over. The event has ended. It is time for you to go. And then we say those proverbial words, you ain't got to go home, but you got to leave up out of here. And that's the same thing we have to do with experiences that are robbing us of our love, robbing us of our joy, robbing it of our peace. We got to stop patting it and feeling it and getting into bed with it and rubbing it and feeding it and clothing it and housing it. It's not going to leave as long as you keep feeding it. As long as you keep hosting the experience is going to stay. But there must become a point where you realize, you know what? I call for you. I accept it. There has to come a point where you realize, you know what? You did not break in here. I opened the door and I let you in. There comes a point where you take responsibility for your life and say, you know what? I've been hosting you. I've been making you feel comfortable. And I'm uncomfortable. But you're comfortable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you know that this party is over. That this episode has ended. That this series has been canceled. I'm going to open that same door that I let you in, and I'm going to let you out. The same way I hosted you, I'm going to invite you to leave. The same way I invited you to come, I'm going to invite you to leave. And the same way that I opened the door to let you in, I'm going to open the door and let that negativity out. And I'm going to release you and let you go. Say, I got everything I needed from this experience. And so I release this experience and I let it go. Nothing comes into your life without your invitation. Pulley point number 1, your soul calls for it. Pulley point number 2, it comes and you let it in. Pulley point number 3, once it gets in, you host it. Make it comfortable and it stays. And the only way to get rid of that negativity, the only way to get rid of that unhealthy relationship, the only way to get rid of that stuff is to take responsibility and say, yep, I called for you. In the same way I called for you, I'm calling you out. And the same way I opened the door and let you in, I'm opening the door and letting you out. And the same way I hosted you and made you feel comfortable, it is now time for you to feel uncomfortable so that you can leave. Jesus said, the prince of this world comes. I call for him. He comes to me. The prince is coming to me. The experience is coming to you because you called for it. But he says he finds nothing in me. Let me tell you something. I'm going to close with this. And people, y'all might not like me. Y'all might cut me off and may not watch tomorrow. But guess what? It's okay. This is how I feel about coronavirus. That coronavirus, it comes. That we called for this as a nation. We called for this as an earth. We called for this. But everybody that, even though we called for it in a collective way, everybody did not open the door and let it in. I can't help that the earth called for it. I'm a part of that collective conscience. It would not be here if we didn't call for it. It came for a reason to teach us so that we could heal, learn, grow, unfold, and become better. But just because we called for it as a collective consciousness, I don't have to let it in my house. I don't have to host it in my body. I hope y'all got that. That even though we called for it, I decide whether or not it comes into my house. I decide whether or not it comes into my body. Yes, it's going to come. But Jesus said the prince of this earth, the prince of this world come. But there's nothing in me that is going to draw that inside of my body. There are no thoughts about sickness, pain, disease that's going to draw that sickness, pain, disease in my body. And if it comes, I'm going to release it and let it go. I'm not going to keep hosting it. I love you so much. God bless you. Thank you so much for being a part of the Daily Download.